She sent a drone to spy on my daughter's window, so I hijacked it midair, rerouted its signal, and watched it dive bomb into her pool like a mechanical martyr. She had no idea who I was. There was a buzz, a faint mechanical whir at first, like a mosquito that had swallowed a lawnmower. I was flipping burgers on the grill, the sun warm on my neck. My wife Angela was setting out chips and lemonade. Our daughter Ellie was curled up on the patio swing, earbuds in, hoodie up, lost in some fantasy novel. It was just another Saturday, the kind you forget in the best way, until that sound got louder. Closer, I looked up and there it was, a sleek black drone hovering 30 feet above our backyard. 4 blades spinning so fast they blurred into smoke rings, the camera lens tilted, angled, locked in on Ellie. At first, I thought it was a kid's toy, someone messing around, but it didn't dart or wobble like a cheap drone. This thing was steady, slow, intentional. I stepped off the patio, waved my arms at it, yelled nothing. It just hovered, cold, watchful. Ellie hadn't noticed yet. She was still lost in her music, but my stomach had already started to tighten. I walked across the yard, followed the drone's position, and watched it drift slowly toward the edge of our property, hovering right above the fence line, like it knew the law better than we did. Then it pivoted, camera still aimed, and zipped off, not random, not curious. It flew in a clean arc toward the biggest house at the end of the cul-de-sac. Karen's house. I stood there for a moment trying to calm the heat crawling up my spine. We all have that one neighbor, the one who treats the HOA like a throne instead of a responsibility. In our neighborhood, that's Karen, head of the Homeowners Association, self-declared queen of compliance. If your grass was a half-inch too long, she'd notice. If your trash bins were out 2 minutes early, she'd photograph them. If your kid's bike was left near the porch, she'd fine you for obstruction. But a drone? That was new. When I told Angela what I saw, her face went pale, then angry. She was hovering it over Ellie? I nodded. Ellie pulled out one earbud and looked at us. It was super close to my window earlier, she said, like, right outside. That was all it took. I knew Karen was controlling it. There wasn't a doubt in my mind, and I knew somehow this wasn't just a one-time flyover. This was the beginning of something worse, because Karen didn't like to observe, she liked to own, and now she'd claimed the sky and made it hers. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just some neighbor with a barbecue and a problem. I had a past, and I had a plan. I walked over that evening still in my backyard, sandals still smelling faintly of charcoal and sunscreen. Karen answered her door holding a wineglass the size of a small aquarium. Her lipstick matched her nails, red like danger signs. "Can I help you?" she asked, like she didn't already know. I kept it calm, measured. "Your drone flew over my backyard this afternoon, hovered over my daughter for a while, just wondering what that was about." She smiled. Not the polite kind, the smile people wear when they know they've already won. "Oh, that?" she said, waving it off. "Just a quick security pass, neighborhood safety patrol. I'm testing out new compliance tools. We've had issues with unsecured backyards." Compliance tools. She really said that, like she was running a checkpoint in a war zone instead of a suburban HOA. "You recorded my daughter," I said. "She's 17, that drone was outside her window. She didn't even flinch. If you've got nothing to hide, you shouldn't mind being observed," she said, then took a long, slow sip of her wine. "Besides, it's not like I landed it in your yard." Then she closed the door, just like that conversation over. I walked back home, each step heavier than the last. Angela was on the porch, watching me with that look, the one that says, "Well?" "She called it a safety patrol," I said, "and she's not even pretending it's not hers." By Monday morning we had our first HOA violation in months. Unauthorized grill cover, improper material, canvas from Home Depot. The exact same one we'd used for 2 years. I laughed at first, but it didn't stop the next day. garden tools visible from street view, then unauthorized decorative rock, then non-compliant wind chime. A wind chime. By the end of the week we had 5 citations, each one more ridiculous than the last. And every time I stepped outside, the drone was back buzzing, hovering, lingering. Angela stopped hanging laundry on the line. Ellie started keeping her curtains shut. Even during the day, the kids down the street stopped playing tag in front lawns because nobody wanted to end up in Karen's footage. It wasn't just about rules anymore. This was targeted, calculated, personal, and it was working. We were pulling back, shrinking into the walls of our own home exactly the way Karen wanted. But she made one mistake. She thought I'd fold like the others, that I'd pay the fines, shrink away, stay quiet. She forgot something important. I don't break easily, and I don't like being watched, especially by someone who thinks the rules only apply to everyone else. Karen thought she was untouchable, but even queens can fall from their thrones. And I was just getting started. I waited until everyone was asleep. The house was still quiet, the kind of silence that only shows up after midnight. I opened my laptop, flipped through tabs, and pulled up the footage from our security cameras. There it was, the drone hovering in the corner of the frame, zooming in, tilting, watching. I froze. It zoomed in on the shape, the lights, the frame, and the landing gear. Then I cross-checked it against known models. It didn't take long. Karen wasn't using some store-bought toy. This was a high-end surveillance drone, surveillance-grade military, adjacent real-time video, programmable pathing, thermal, and zoom functions. The work, she didn't buy this off a shelf, she researched, it invested in it and deployed it with purpose, and right then it stopped being annoying and started being dangerous. I recognized the make, because I used to work with them years ago, before the quiet life. Before Ellie, I helped build countermeasures for a private defense contractor. I knew how to take things apart remotely, silently, cleanly. I hadn't touched that side of myself in a long time. But Karen woke it up, and it was wide awake now. I went to the garage, pushed past the boxes of Christmas lights and old soccer gear, dug through the back shelf, and pulled out a dusty black case. Inside was the kit signal scanner, frequency reader, multi-band jammer, stuff I'd kept just in case. Well, this was the case. I powered it up, the old hum still familiar, like an old friend clearing its throat. The next morning I set up on the patio, coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. The drone arrived right on time, buzzing like a digital wasp 25 feet up. I activated a low-power pulse, just enough to tickle it. The drone shuddered, dipped a few feet, then corrected itself. I turned the jammer off, took another sip of coffee. Somewhere in her perfectly manicured house, Karen was probably smacking her controller, wondering why her flying eye just blinked. I didn't smile, but I wanted to, because that was just a test. The soft tap on the door. Not the slam she thought she owned. The air thought her tech made her untouchable, but tech can be tricked, redirected, shut down. And if she was going to keep flying, I was going to keep pushing. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I wasn't about to lose one either, especially not to someone who treated my daughter's privacy like it was hers to inspect. Karen opened a door she didn't know existed, and behind it was me. The old me, the one who knew how to break things without leaving a trace. And this time the target was already in the sky. The second test came on a Wednesday around 9 a.m. Same time as always. It was almost funny how precise Karen's patrol schedule was, like she thought predictable timing made it professional. The drone rose up from her backyard just above the trees, drifted left, then circled into the cul-de-sac like it was sniffing for crimes. I waited on the deck, pretending to sip coffee, pretending not to notice it. Hovered above the neighbor's swing set, then over my tomato beds, then slowly turned to my house, like it knew exactly where to look. Right on cue. I tapped the jammer, just a tiny pulse. 5 seconds of signal. Fog. The drone twitched, midair, jerked to the left, then shot upward, like it had been startled. It spun slightly, dipped, wobbled, then steadied itself. I cut the jammer instantly, Didn't want to fry it. Not yet, just wanted to rattle the cage from where I stood. I could see the curtains shift in Karen's upstairs window. Yep, she was watching. I imagined her pressing buttons, tapping the screen, blaming her Wi-Fi, her signal, the weather, anything but what it really was. Outside interference later that day, a new email hit the HOA list subject line. Important community alert. Tech security breach? She really wrote that, claimed there had been unusual interruptions in the neighborhood's aerial oversight systems. She warned that a hostile actor could be attempting to sabotage community safety measures, and advised everyone to report suspicious electronic behavior immediately. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so disturbing. She truly believed she was running some kind of airborne law enforcement, like a suburban sky marshal with her own personal surveillance agency. My neighbor Tom forwarded me the email with a one-word subject line. Bro? I didn't respond, just smiled at the screen because it was working. The drone had blinked and Karen noticed, but she didn't know who or how, and that uncertainty that was the real power. Angela asked me that night if I was going to report her. I shook my head. Reporting her goes through her own board, I said. They won't do anything. So what then? She asked. We let her unravel herself. I said all I did was give the string a little tug. And the thing about people like Karen, the ones who crave control, who obsess over power, is that the moment they feel it slip even a little, they spiral, and once they start spiraling, you don't have to do much at all. Just step back and let gravity do the rest. By Friday morning, Karen had lost her mind. She wasn't just suspicious now, she was full-blown paranoid. The drone flew its usual loop, but this time it was moving slower, jerkier, like it was being piloted with a death grip. And then came the cameras. I watched from my window as a van pulled into her driveway. Two guys in polo shirts got out, started unpacking gear like they were setting up for a bank heist. By noon, Karen had mounted a motion-sensitive camera on her porch, another on the peak of her garage, and a third one, the tall one, on a metal pole staked in her backyard. That one had infrared. I could tell by the lens ring they were pointed in every direction, but all of them conveniently faced properties she'd already sighted this month. By that evening, a fresh HOA email hit the neighborhood inbox. Subject: Urgent. Neighborhood under electronic attack. I wish I was kidding in it. Karen claimed that foreign frequencies were interfering with community oversight operations, and asked everyone to check their homes for unauthorized transmitters, suspicious antennas, or questionable tech activity. She was turning neighbors into suspects and her house into a surveillance bunker. She even included a blurry screenshot of what she called suspicious backyard equipment. It was a picture of my grill, and next to it, my fake birdhouse. Well, not exactly fake. That birdhouse was my next move. I'd started building it that morning. Wooden shell, rusted screws to make it look old, a little plastic robin glued to the edge for charm, but inside was a directional signal jammer, short-range tight cone, clean output, still perfectly legal, as long as it didn't interfere with emergency bands. It could scramble signal in a 50-foot beam, more than enough to confuse a drone. If it flew too close, I placed it right on the patio rail, where no one would ever think twice about it to anyone else. It was just some dad's weird attempt at lawn decor. But to me, it was a turret, camouflaged and quiet. And next time that drone flew over, it wouldn't just twitch, it'd panic back inside. I logged my notes, mapped her drone's flight patterns, measured average altitudes, timed the hover durations over each yard. It wasn't random, she was targeting, and some of us got more flyovers than others. Especially me. Karen thought she was tightening her grip on the neighborhood, watching everything, controlling everything, writing fines, like commandments. But she didn't realize every time she pointed a camera at someone, they turned a little more against her, and every eye she opened made her more blind to what was really coming. Because while she was filming the world from above, I was building something below, something quiet, something patient, and something very, very ready. It started with a text from Tom, then came Sarah, then Mrs. Patel. One by one, neighbors started reaching out not just to vent, but to ask the same question. Did you see the drone over my house last night? I didn't have to ask what drone we all knew. Tom said it hovered over his deck for nearly 5 minutes. He thought it was a bird at first, until the red light blinked and the lens pivoted straight toward his living room window. Sarah said it buzzed past her, while she was unloading groceries low enough to make her flinch. Her toddler cried the whole evening after that, and Mrs. Patel, sweet, quiet. Mrs. Patel said she caught it staring into her sunroom right as she was folding laundry. She said it felt violating. That was the word she used, violating. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. The neighborhood was waking up. You could feel it. The shift, the buzz. That wasn't the drone. People were stepping outside. Less closing blinds, tighter, moving like they were being watched, because they were. Even the kids felt it no more. Sidewalk chalk, no more bikes weaving around driveways, just cautious glances and the sound of that whirring shadow overhead. We weren't living in a community, we were living in a fishbowl, and Karen was the one tapping the glass, but something unexpected started happening too. Whispers turned into conversations. Conversations turned into plans. I bumped into Tom while taking the trash out. He leaned in, voice low. Hey, you noticed the drone shakes near your house? I just smiled, said something vague about interference. He grinned like he already knew. Well, whatever it is, I think it's working. Word was spreading. A few neighbors started hanging bedsheets in their yards as makeshift privacy walls. One guy put a giant inflatable shark on his roof with a sign that read "No Fly Zone." It was ridiculous and beautiful. Even Mrs. Patel, bless her, put out a cardboard cutout of a giant eye, staring up at the sky. We were scared. Yes. But we were also getting bold because nothing brings people together faster than a shared enemy, especially one that hovers. I saw Karen watching from her window. Her arms crossed, expression unreadable, probably trying to figure out why the ants were suddenly marching in formation, but she didn't get it. She built this with every citation, every blurry photo, every second of unauthorized footage. She didn't just create fear, she created resistance. And now the neighborhood was no longer hers to control. We might not have had power, but we had each other, and that was a start. The birdhouse was good, clean, efficient, but it wasn't enough anymore. The drone still flew, still hovered, still watched. Karen was getting bolder. Her drone was flying lower, closer, lingering like it had something to prove. So I went back to the garage, back to the case, and opened up the rest of the tools I hadn't touched in years. This time, I wasn't building something to jam. I was building something to control a signal spoofer. Something that didn't just block the commands, but tricked them, replaced them. I knew her drone model by now. I'd mapped every frequency, every burst signal, every range setting. I could speak its language now, and soon, I'd be able to whisper instructions into its tiny mechanical brain. It took me 3 days. Late nights soldering by flashlight, rewriting firmware on an old laptop that still smelled like solder and coffee. And when it was ready, I installed the spoofer inside the same birdhouse, swapped out the jammer unit, kept the shell identical from the outside. Nothing had changed, but inside I now held the keys to her kingdom. The next part was choosing the right place. I wanted somewhere poetic, somewhere that would make a point, not just knock the drone out, but leave a mark. And that's when I remembered Karen's pool. Of course, she had one saltwater surrounded by ceramic flamingos and a decorative sign that said, "No running, no fun" in cursive. She loved that pool more than most people love their children. Bragged about it at every HOA meeting, showed it off like it was the 8th wonder of the world. It was perfect, if I could guide the drone just right, cut its flight path, nudge its stabilizers, I could drop it clean into the deep end. And best of all, she wouldn't even know what happened. Not at first, just a splash, a sputter, and silence. I set up the birdhouse facing her backyard, calibrated the spoofer's beam, Synced it to my laptop, tested the signal drift twice, once on a test drone, once on a backup unit I built from spare parts. Both times it worked like a charm. The drone didn't crash, it obeyed blindly perfectly. I didn't feel proud, not yet, but I felt ready. This wasn't sabotage, this was defense. A line drawn in the digital sand. Karen had invaded our privacy, turned our homes into surveillance zones, used tech like a weapon, and now her own tool was about to betray her, not out of vengeance, not out of spite, but because even machines, when given the right signal, can learn who really deserves to fall. It was one of those still, muggy evenings, the kind where the air sticks to your skin and even the birds are too tired to chirp. I knew she'd be out there. Karen didn't just use her pool, she performed in it, like it was a stage and the whole neighborhood was her audience. And tonight she was in rare form, lounging on a bright pink flamingo float, oversized sunglasses, wide-brimmed hat, holding a drink that matched her nails. Fire engine red. The drone was already airborne, doing its slow circuit over the yards, buzzing like it owned the place. I watched it from my patio, calm, still waiting. Then it turned, angled itself toward my fence line, and drifted closer, hovering low enough to make the garden lights flicker perfect. I opened the laptop, brought up the spoofer interface, watched the signal lock. "Hello again?" I whispered. The drone twitched once, hovered, then started to spin, not fast, just enough to make it look confused. I injected the override command, tilted its internal compass just enough to throw it off, then nudged it forward, inch by inch, toward Karen's backyard. She didn't notice at first. Still floating, scrolling through her phone, the drone crept closer, its red light blinking slowly like it was unsure. I guided it directly over her pool, 10 feet up dead center, then paused. This was the moment I could have backed off, let it hover and drift home. But no, this wasn't about breaking a toy. This was about sending a message, about setting boundaries, about justice, midair justice. I sent the final command, descend. The drone dipped, hesitated, then dropped straight down like a stone. A perfect vertical plunge. It hit the water with a satisfying splash, propellers sputtering, lights blinking wildly before it sank beneath the surface, like a mechanical anchor. Karen screamed, a mix of confusion and outrage, flailing on her float, like she'd been electrocuted. Sloshing water everywhere. Her phone nearly went in. She lost her drink and the flamingo spun in a slow, sad circle. I closed my laptop, stood up and went back inside. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. The sound of her screeching echoed across the yards, followed by the unmistakable gurgle of a drowning drone. Neighbors peeked from windows. Some even stepped onto their porches, pretending to stretch, pretending not to watch but watching. We all knew. Even if we didn't say it, the sky was finally quiet. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The queen of the skies had just been dethroned by her own reflection, rippling in chlorinated water. She disappeared for 2 days. No emails, no citations, no buzzing overhead. Just silence, and then she snapped. It started with the flyers printed in color, on glossy paper taped to every mailbox, lamppost, and community bulletin board. "Attention residents. Sabotage in our midst." That was the headline beneath it. A blurry, zoomed-in screenshot of her drone, half submerged in the pool. Its blinking red light caught mid-flicker. Beneath that a paragraph of wild accusations. Something about digital terrorism, interference with official HOA surveillance equipment, and an orchestrated campaign of tech-based hostility. I stood in front of one, reading it while holding my morning coffee, trying not to laugh. She really called it official HOA surveillance equipment, like she was running mission control for a space agency. Sarah walked by with her dog, paused, read the poster, shook her head. "She's gone full sci-fi villain," she muttered. I nodded, took a sip. "We're just waiting for the part where she blames aliens." But she wasn't done. Next came the HOA-wide emergency email subject. Operation Dronefall. Internal threat identified. She listed off vague technical jargon, claimed someone in the neighborhood was using military-grade signal disruptors, warned that such activity could lead to federal charges, and insisted that the board take immediate action against those responsible. She didn't name names, but everyone knew who she meant, and then she called the cops. Yep. An officer showed up on my doorstep, a young guy barely out of academy, looking equal parts annoyed and amused. Got a call about illegal drone tampering, he said. I invited him in, offered coffee, showed him my own backyard footage of the drone flying low over our property, explained the constant buzzing, the audio recordings. It broadcast the citations that followed every flyover. His eyes narrowed. He nodded slowly, then said, "Honestly, sounds like she's the one we should be talking to." And that was that. He left with a copy of the footage and never came back. Word spread fast. Neighbors started peeling down her flyers or defacing them with doodles. One got altered to say, "Attack of the Killer Drones, now playing," with little stick figures screaming below. Even her usual allies started pulling away, murmuring things like, "She's under a lot of stress," or, "Maybe she just needs a break." But Karen didn't want a break. She wanted revenge. She wanted order, submission, control. And now that she couldn't get it, she was spiraling. The power she'd clutched so tightly was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't stop it, because for once, the neighborhood wasn't scared. We were done being watched, and Karen, no matter how many posters she printed, couldn't uncrash her drone or rebuild the throne. It drowned with. They held the emergency HOA meeting at the community center, the same place we usually reserved for potlucks and spring garden planning sessions. No one ever went to, but this time every seat was filled. Neighbors packed shoulder to shoulder, some standing in the back, arms crossed, waiting. The air buzzed, not with tech, but tension. Karen walked in 10 minutes late wearing a blazer too stiff for the heat, a folder clutched in one hand. Her smile stretched tight like she was still in control. She wasn't the board president. Howard, an older guy who usually avoided conflict like it was contagious, stood at the front of the room, cleared his throat. "We're here," he said, "to discuss recent complaints regarding unauthorized drone usage by a member of this board." Everyone looked at Karen. She didn't blink. "I was acting in the interest of community safety," she said, voice syrupy. "My drone was ensuring compliance with HOA standards." Then I stood up. "If that's true," I said, "then maybe we should all see what compliance looks like through Karen's lens." I plugged a USB into the projector, lights dimmed, and the screen lit up. The first clip was short. A drone hovering over Mrs. Patel's sunroom, her folding laundry, oblivious. A few gasps, then the next. A shot panning across Sarah's backyard, her toddler playing in a kiddie pool. The drone hovered for a full minute before flying off. Someone muttered, "That's messed up." I clicked to the third. A trampoline, 3 kids jumping, laughing. The drone floated above them like a hawk, its lens zooming in and out, documenting what no one could say. You could hear the silence in the room deepen. Then came the final clip. My own footage, Karen's drone hovering outside Ellie's bedroom, camera pointed directly through the window. The timestamp clearly visible. Broad daylight. The crowd shifted, a few people whispered. One woman gasped out loud. Karen's face froze. Her fingers tightened on her folder, but she didn't speak, not yet. "These weren't safety checks," I said. "This was surveillance, plain and simple." "You're twisting this," she snapped. "You're all too naive to see what's happening in this neighborhood. I was trying to maintain standards, keep order, protect value." Tom stood up from the back. "You filmed my daughter," he said, voice low. "You didn't protect anything, you violated everything." Even Howard looked rattled. He cleared his throat again. "Karen, based on this footage and the mounting complaints, the board is voting to suspend your authority, effective immediately pending formal review." Karen stood up so fast her chair skidded back. "You're making a huge mistake. He hacked me, he's manipulating everything." But no one listened. She stormed out. Heels clicking door, slamming behind her, and when the silence returned, it felt clean, honest, like the first breath after a storm. The spell was broken, and Karen, the self-appointed queen of the skies, had finally fallen to earth. The email hit at 7:02 the next morning. Subject: Board decision. Emergency action passed unanimously. I read it twice just to make sure I hadn't dreamed it. Effective immediately. Karen's enforcement privileges were suspended. Her access to the HOA communication list was revoked, and her ability to issue citations was stripped clean. But the real gem was at the bottom. No aerial surveillance shall be permitted within HOA jurisdiction. Violations of residential privacy by drone or similar devices are strictly prohibited. They called it the Karen Clause. I couldn't make that up if I tried. The neighborhood buzzed this time with laughter, relief, jubilation. People came out of their homes like it was the first day of spring. Tom fired up his grill before noon. Mrs. Patel brought out folding chairs and lemonade. Sarah let her toddler run through a sprinkler. No fear of a lens watching the air, for the first time in weeks, felt normal. Angela met me on the porch smiling, holding her coffee like a peace offering from the gods. She really lost it, huh? I nodded. Crashed and burned just like her drone. That evening, someone changed the neighborhood's group chat name to No Fly Zone. Someone else photoshopped Karen's face onto a deflating blimp and posted it with the caption, "Final descent complete." We laughed, not because we were mean, but because we had been living under her shadow for far too long. Power has a way of shrinking people, making them smaller than they already were. And Karen, who once towered over the HOA like a queen on her balcony, was now just another neighbor, just a woman with too many cameras, and no one left to watch her. House stayed dark, curtains drawn, mailbox overflowing. She didn't show her face at the next board meeting or the community cleanup or the Saturday market stand she used to monitor for unauthorized signage. She was gone not physically but in every way that mattered, and the rest of us? We started to breathe again. People painted their fences without asking permission. Someone hung wind chimes, loud ones on purpose. I swear a few folks even parked slightly crooked on their driveways just to see if anyone would say something. No one did. The drone was dead. The queen dethroned, and the kingdom was free. In the end, Karen didn't fall because someone pushed her. She fell because she climbed too high on rules. No one believed in using tools. No one trusted. And when the wind changed, there was nothing holding her up. Just hot air and a very deep pool. Rest in peace. Karen's reign, long live the neighborhood. The sky was empty again. No buzzing. No low hum. No paranoid glances toward the clouds. Just birds, wind, and peace. For the first time in what felt like forever. I could sit on my porch feet, up coffee hot, and not worry about whether some camera lens was aimed at my life. It was quiet, but not the eerie kind, not the kind Karen had created, the kind where silence meant someone was watching. This was a good, quiet, earned honest, the kind that lets your shoulders drop and your thoughts wander. Ellie came out one morning holding a tangle of wires and propellers. "Dad, think we could actually build it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Build what?" She grinned, that spark in her eyes, the one that hadn't been there since the drone first showed up. "A snack drone, like a little delivery system, you know, for when I'm doing homework in the backyard." I laughed louder than I expected, not because the idea was silly, but because it was perfect. We'd spent so long seeing drones as weapons, as eyes as threats. But now we could flip the script, so we got to work. Dug out the old parts, the untouched kit we started a year ago and forgot about. Found an old action camera mount, perfect for a snack basket. Soldered, coated, tinkered until it flew. It didn't go far, and it sure wasn't sleek, but it hovered. And that first time, it dropped a granola bar into Ellie's hand like it was airdropping joy. We both laughed until we were crying. Angela called it ridiculous, but she said it smiling as she filmed it for her sisters in Florida. Neighbors started asking about it. "That the snack drone? Can I order cookies to my hammock?" It became a joke, A neighborhood mascot, proof that not all tech had to be creepy. It could be fun. Light connected to something human, and that was the real victory, not the drone in the pool, not the clause in the bylaws, but the feeling that came back after it all. Normalcy, laughter, freedom. One night, as the sun dropped low and the porch lights flicked on, Angela leaned against the railing beside me. "You think she's still watching?" I shook my head. "Nah, not anymore." Her house was still there, but the curtains never moved, the porch never lit. She wasn't part of this place anymore, not really, because a neighborhood isn't about who controls it, it's about who loves it, lives in it, grows with it, and we were finally doing that again. No threats, no cameras, no queens, just a family. A funny little drone and a sky that belonged to all of us again.